And the last programming concept in the Big Four is selection. This concept is all about making decisions in our programs based on whether something is true or false. Though the concept is called selection, the most common block that you will use for selection is an if statement or if block. And if you are a block-based coding fan, then you are going to love the if block in FlockXR. Now, as teachers, we can really overthink selection. As a curriculum reviewer and teacher for many years, I have seen a lot of resources that teach young people about selection. A lot of time is spent dissecting English sentences that can either be true or false. Statements like, "It is raining," "It is lunchtime," or "I am older than 7." I have tried these two in my lessons and thought that they made perfect sense at the time. Here's the thing though. We can often underestimate our learners and think that if we jump straight into the code, they aren't going to get it. We think that relating selection to things we do in our daily lives will make the transition easier. And for some learners, it might help. Let's link back to episode 3 where I talked about analogies and how it can be difficult for learners to hold two things in their heads at once. When we start talking about the weather or cups of tea, then learners get distracted by having to think about something other than the code. If we just get stuck in, then learners will pick it up because they will see selection happening right before their eyes in their own projects. So here is how I introduce selection to young people. Selection allows us to make decisions in our programs based on whether something is true or false. We call that something a condition. A condition can either be true or false. In FlockXR, the most common way to use selection is with an if block. Let's see one in action.
Here we have an if block that is wrapped in a forever loop. This is because we want the program to continuously check if the condition is true. Button 1 is the condition, and it is checking if button 1 is being pressed. If it is false, then it won't do anything. If it is true, then it will run the code inside the if block. In this case, it will colour the tree. Let's test it. When I press play, nothing happens. This is because the condition button 1 is false. When I press it though, the condition becomes true and the code inside the if block runs, and now the tree is pink.
Notice that I was using the correct words to describe what was happening. The first time you see an if statement, you might feel like there is a lot going on. The more examples you see, the more the terminology becomes familiar to you. Let's copy and paste the if block and try a different condition.
If I select the if block and then I use Control-C and Control-V on my keyboard, then it copies and pastes the whole if block. I can then change the condition from button 1 to button 2, and I can change the colour of the tree to something different. Now I must remember to press play before I test so that it registers the new code. Let's check the first condition still works. Button 1 makes the tree pink. And now let's look at this next one. Button 2 makes it yellow. So when I don't press anything, nothing happens because each of these conditions are false. But when I press button 1, this becomes true and it becomes pink. When I press button 2, this becomes true and it becomes yellow.
We have now created a second if statement with a new condition and a new outcome if it is true. So how do I get button 3 to do something then? What do you think?
I copy and paste the block again, so Control-C, Control-V. I change it to button 3, and then I change the colour. So let's go for blue this time. Remember to press play before you test, and then you can test the first one, the second one, and then the third one.
Did you guess right? If so, then you just understood how to make a basic if statement. You chose a condition and you chose an outcome for if that condition was true. Do you see how I keep repeating the key terms? If statement, condition, true, false, outcome. As long as we keep using the right words, they will begin to become familiar to your learners, and they will start to associate the words with things their code needs to do. I bet you could get button 4 working now, right, without any help at all. Go ahead and pause the video and try it yourself if you have time. As soon as your learners grasp that they can make things happen if a condition is true, then they can create all sorts of fun projects. Having the on-screen button controls in FlockXR makes learning if statements really accessible, because they can clearly see when the condition becomes true and what happens when it is true. They could create a character customizer. They could create a talking machine. They could even create a dancing cube with the help of physics and forces. Physics and forces are being covered in the next episode, and we're going to have a lot of fun with those. Stick with a basic if block for several lessons and project examples. Get learners really familiar with the terms and with building their own as well. Once they are comfortable with an if statement, we can then expand it to include an else. This episode is being filmed at Mary Stevens Park in Stourbridge. The park was donated to the town by local industrialist Ernest Stevens in memory of his wife Mary. There are loads of things you can do here, including playing basketball. Now, I've never been on a basketball team. I've never played a proper match, but every now and then I quite enjoy picking up a ball and trying to get it through a hoop. And I think we sometimes forget that it's okay to enjoy doing something without needing to become brilliant at it. Programming can be like that too. When we teach young people to code, we're not trying to turn every learner into a programmer. We're giving them another way to make things, solve problems, be creative, and hopefully have a bit of fun. Maybe some of them will become amazing programmers, and that's brilliant. But maybe for somebody else, coding just becomes something they enjoy doing from time to time. A hobby they can lose themselves in for an hour while they build something that didn't exist before. And that's a pretty good outcome too. So let's get back to including an else with our if blocks. If you have used block-based coding tools before, then you will have seen the different ways that the tools approach the if block. In Scratch, you have to decide if you want an if or an if-else before you drag the block in. In MakeCode, you use a plus and a minus to edit the block as you go. We thought long and hard about how to get an if block to be as accessible as possible, and this is our approach.
Let's go back to our original example with just one if block. We can copy and paste it just like before, but this time I'm going to go to the drop down, and where it says if, I'm going to change it to else. Did you notice what happened there? The condition disappeared, it changed to an else, and you can notice that the line is slightly broken there to show that this if block is now joined together and it's become one if-else statement. Let's give a different colour to our tree for the else. What do you think is going to happen when I press play? Let's see. Interesting. So was your prediction correct? Why do you think it might now be blue? Let's step through this code. The forever loop is checking the if statement all of the time, checking if the condition is true or not. When it is true, it runs the code inside this part where you've got button 1. When it is false though, the bit inside the else runs. If I tap or hold on button 1, the tree is pink, because now the condition is true. But as soon as I let go, the condition is false and it goes back to blue.
Again, you want to give your learners lots of example projects that use if and else to get them used to building them themselves and hearing and using the terminology. We did it! We got through the Big Four. Having a solid understanding of the Big Four gives you a great starting point for the next programming concepts you should explore. You can stay in the Big Four for quite some time. There are loads of projects that you can try. Our Coding 3D Worlds curriculum has about 20 or so of them, all with lesson plans, slide decks and direct-to-learner videos. In the next episode, we're going to take a short break from exploring the core programming concepts and discover some of the powerful features that a game engine like FlockXR has to offer. And if you want to stay up to date with the series, then like and subscribe now so that you don't miss out. Bye bye for now.